Come to me, all who are weary. Whether you are weary in the mind, in the spirit, in the body, whatever the situation is, whatever is burdening you, Christ is saying that he is willing to give you rest, deliverance. But there's a condition. You need to come to him. You need to remain in him. So no matter what challenge or bondage you face today, if you make that decision to fully and truly surrender your life to Jesus, if you make that decision to fully and truly commit your life to Christ, not play games with God. Don't play games with God. And that's why many never receive the deliverance, because they're playing games with God. They come to God for deliverance and then they go back to their old lifestyle. It will never work. If you make that decision today to fully and truly surrender your life to Christ, then you can be assured of three things. Three things you can be assured of. The first thing that you can be assured of is that because you have surrendered your heart and your life to Jesus truthfully, you now have the righteousness of Jesus. When you give your life to Jesus fully and completely, you now have the righteousness of Jesus, of Christ. Not your own righteousness, but the righteousness of Christ. And you're now empowered by the Spirit of God. What does that mean? It means that when God now looks at you, when God looks at me, he doesn't just see me. He doesn't just see you. What he sees is the righteousness of Jesus upon you because you have surrendered and put your faith in Jesus. 2 Corinthians 5:21. 2 Corinthians 5:21, what does it tell us? It says, God made him, that is Jesus, who had no sin, to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. So that in him we might become the righteousness of God. In Christ, we now take on his righteousness, not our righteousness. So when God looks at us, he sees the righteousness of Christ upon us. But we have to be in Jesus. We have to be clothed with Jesus. We have to surrender to Jesus. We have to commit to Jesus. We have to follow Jesus. We have to obey Jesus. Secondly, because you are now in Christ, you can now be assured that the Lord not only cares about your situation, he not only cares about that bondage, he not only cares about that stronghold, but he's willing to deliver you and heal you and set you free completely. But the tragic thing for many is that they are unwilling to go to the only person who can save them, and that is Jesus. And that's why many perish in their bondage. They perish in their stronghold. They perish in their sin because the only one who can deliver them, they turn their backs on him. And not only is Jesus willing to save you and heal you and transform you, he is more than able to set you free. The thing is, we limit God. We limit what we believe God can do. And we elevate our situation above the power of God. We make that bondage, that problem bigger than what God can do. And again, that's a lie that the enemy feeds our minds, that we buy into. And we have to remember one thing. Our expectation of God will always drive our experience of God. Our expectation of God, what we expect that God can do, will drive what God can do in our lives. God is able, more than able, to set us free. Ephesians 3:20. What does it say? He says that he is able to do immeasurably more. That is God. God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. Imagine that. When we come to God, when we ask, or when we think that God can do, What we come to him for, what we ask him for, that God is able to do immeasurably more, infinitely more. So we limit God. We limit him. We elevate our problems, we elevate our bondage, we elevate our struggles above the power of God. And we remain in that situation because we've elevated that thing above God. And the Bible is saying that God is able to do immeasurably more, infinitely more than all we can ask or imagine. John 3:8. 1 John 3:8. What does it tell us? 1 John 3:8 says here that the reason the Son of God, that is Jesus, appeared was to destroy the devil's work. In case you're wondering if Jesus can set you free from that addiction, from that bondage, from that stronghold, he is more than able to save you. 1 John 3:8 says that the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. And make no mistake, every addiction, every bondage, every stronghold, every struggle with sin is a work of Satan. But we are told here in 1 John 3:8 that Christ came to destroy the devil's work. And destroy means that to utterly ruin, to utterly defeat, to completely pull down. That is why Christ came.